Mark Weinberg itself always used to say, "Who's the most dangerous man in the world?"
Dangerous in what sense?
Like dangerous in the sense of could kill you, destroy the world. Which other sense is
Oh,
there?
the person who thinks that they're right when they're really wrong.
Oh, very good. Right, a
You taught us
righteous.
this.
What's that?
You taught us this.
Yeah, no, right. There's the righteous man, right? Because he'll kill you, right? There's a mitzvah, right? Jean Patrick, I don't know if you remember her, she was the ambassador to the United Nations, the American ambassador to the United Nations. And she got into a lot of trouble one time because she said, I'd rather deal with a right-wing dictator than a left-wing dictator. She explained, like, I'd rather deal with Castro, if you remember him from the Philippines.
No, that's Marcos.
Marcos, sorry, you're right. Marcos from the Philippines than Castro from Cuba. Right? Because Marcos from the Philippines was a right-wing dictator. He was just a thug. But Castro in Cuba was an idealist. You know, he'll kill you because you're wearing the wrong shoes. Right? Marcos in the Philippines, he just wanted money. You could buy him off. Like the same way like the guy in North Korea.
His wife wanted shoes.
His wife wanted shoes, exactly. Right? So the righteous man is a very dangerous person. If your plane that you're on, I don't want to go there, but if your plane you're on is getting hijacked, you want to pick a right-wing hijacker. He's only doing it for the money. You don't want a left-wing guy, right? That was 9/11. But a right-wing guy is not going to blow up the plane. He wants to spend the money. A left-wing guy will blow up the plane. He doesn't care. Right? So when you get into the realm of like doing things because you want to be super duper holy, you run into some very dangerous territory. And that's what we're getting into now. He says, who mishkahasius, but who inyan ikre mu'ad mu'ad. I believe this is the only time he uses that phrase, mu'ad mu'ad. Exceedingly, exceedingly. Mu'ad one time is already a lot. Mu'ad mu'ad, that's way over the top. This is very, 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 very important. But teda be'emet, and we can't, as Jews, we just can't escape it. We all engage in some form of super duper. Right? We're not doing the barest minimum that you can possibly, even what you might call, excuse the expression, secular Jews are engaging in something super duper. Right? They're marching for something. I don't know if I ever told you the story. I was coming back from New York, and it was a packed train. And who sits right in front of me? A male prostitute. So, like, exactly. And we started talking. He seemed like a nice guy, and he somehow got onto the subject of what do you do? I mean, my keeper kind of stands out on the train, and so I said, "What do you do?" And he told me. And he didn't call it a prostitute. He had some fancy name for it. I don't remember what it was. And
Gigolo.
What? No, it
Gigolo.
wasn't. No, it wasn't that. I don't remember. So, but anyway, so I don't want to go into too many details. It could be a G audience here. Bill is listening. I got to watch out for her sensitivities. She's a little green behind the ears, so I've got to be careful. So the Almighty put me in front of him for a reason. So, Rahman Islam, the Almighty should save us from our sins. He was Jewish, and I figured it must be I got to McCarthy the guy. So I started going through the famous Rav Noah class called the 5 Levels of Pleasure, and we get to the bit of doing the right thing. It's a great pleasure when you feel like you're making a difference in the world. So my thinking was, I haven't really learned the Mesilat yet. to this depth, like at least I haven't got to this chapter maybe. My thinking was, this is going to get him. And I said to him, do you do any, do you have a cause that you believe in? And he was like sort of outraged. Yeah, for sure. These guys' causes that he makes him feel like a good person.
Hey, Rabbi, some of my best friends are gay, so.
Yeah. No, I've had gay students. There's nothing wrong with them. There's nothing, Rav Noach said, it's a fascinating thing. The Torah is the most liberal thinking religion on the planet. No other religion accepts gays. They just don't. You go ask the Muslims, forget it. You go ask the Catholics, forget it. Right? So Judaism is the only religion that has a tolerance. Is liberal on this issue. So he will explain. I believe it's this week's Parsha, Achrei Mos. Yes, Achrei. I could be wrong, but so the Torah has two mitzvahs. There's a mitzvah to not have relations with a man should not have relations with another man, right? And then there's another mitzvah in the Torah that you're not allowed to have relations. A man's not allowed to have relations with his father. I hope I'm not cramping anyone's style here. Not treading on anyone's toes. If I am, don't tell me. I don't want to know. So, right? So Rav Noach would say, like, you don't have a mitzvah not to fly on Shabbos. Right? The mitzvahs only come to be practical. Like if it's not a practical concept, there's no mitzvah to do such a thing. God doesn't prescribe things that can't possibly happen. So who could possibly want to have relations with their father? Right? Who's that going to apply to? Anyone? No one present company, right? It's not even a possibility. Right? Is that why? You have to be gay. Right? To be a possibility. So who's the mitzvah talking to? Somebody is gay. Is that because nothing personal, but it isn't. I love my dad. That ain't on the cards. Right? We're going really risque here. Right? But that's not on the cards. If also, who would that apply to? It only applied to a gay person. So the Torah is speaking to him. You may be gay, but there's other mitzvahs too. It doesn't preclude you from keeping the other mitzvahs. You still have a relationship with God. God's still talking to you. Just as much as
he's not cut off. He's not cut off.
Exactly.
He's not told, flee, get out of here. We don't want anything to do with you.
That's
Instead, we're like, hey, I created this mitzvah just for you.
This is the mitzvah that you can keep.
Right.
Yes, right. Rav Yaakov Weinberger used to say to us that you keep kosher better than I keep kosher.
Why?
That's what we said. So he said, because the mitzvah of keeping kosher is you should want to eat treif, but God says no, you shouldn't do it. Right? So for instance, it's treif, you're not allowed to eat monkey brains. I'm really treading on people's toes here. Right? In the Philippines, they eat monkey brains, like live monkey brains. This is a delicacy in the Philippines. They tie a monkey to a table, they crack open, say, wait, still a lot. I'm really getting gross here. And they eat his brains. Right?
I know you're right, because I used to work at a bank many long years ago, and one of our bank officers came back from one of his trips, and he told us about that, and we all wanted to go throw up. It was gross. It was so gross.
So
it was in the second Indiana Jones movie.
It'd still be gross. I don't care where it is.
So you don't have to be kosher to not want to do that. No, I don't eat monkey brains. I keep kosher. He said, I'm not doing it not because I keep kosher, but because I find it disgusting. Right? But that's not what the Torah says. The Torah says you shouldn't do it because the Torah says not to do it. It's one of those mitzvahs you should do only because God said so. Not all the mitzvahs are like that, but some of them are like that. So he said that's why you shouldn't eat monkey brains. So he says, Rav Yaakov, it's a sensitivity. In other words, you grow up eating certain kinds of foods, or you grow up not eating certain kinds of foods. Those foods that you won't eat are somewhat repulsive to you in varying degrees. So he said, I couldn't eat a cheeseburger even if I wanted to, even if it was permissible, I couldn't do it. It's so gross to me that I couldn't do such a thing. That's not keeping kosher the way you're supposed to keep kosher. Right? So you guys, you don't eat lobster because the Torah says don't eat lobster. Right? You don't eat a cheeseburger because the Torah says don't eat a cheeseburger, right? I'd really fancy a cheeseburger, but what can I do? Right? You know my fantasy.
Rabbi,
Right?
cheeseburgers were my favorite thing before I
know.
converted, let me tell you. And actually, it was one of the first things I gave up because I thought if I can't give up cheeseburgers, I can't convert. So it was one of the first things I did was to give up cheeseburgers.
Right.
And I cannot say that the whole concept of eating a cheeseburger grosses me out because that'd be a lie, but I don't eat them anymore.
Right, that's exactly the point. Right? I always have a dream that one day, the President of the United Prime Minister of Israel is going to call me up and fly me into Damascus for a secret mission, right? And in a time of war, you're allowed to eat anything, right? And he parachutes me in right in front of a McDonald's, and they got a special on cheeseburgers, French fries, and a double milkshake. I go, what am I going to do? It's a mitzvah. That situation, right? In time of war, you're allowed to eat anything, right? Anyway, getting back. So we really got off track here.
Well, this is all about assessing, right?
Assessing.
You must balance things.
Right. And you see, this is where people go way off track. America is in the grips of highly passionate people for totally contradictory causes. You can pick a simple one, gun rights. You've got people on one side that are passionate, right? And the other side equally passionate, right? Because when it gets into this area, judgment gets very fuzzy. So that's what he says. It's very, very difficult. You have to be exceedingly careful. The Teda be'emet, so you should know the second sentence into the chapter. You should know in truth, Shazohi hamalacha kasha. This is the hard work that is required to be a chassid. This is the hard work. He dakoto rav, because it's very fine. The distinctions between right and wrong are very fine. V'yesh yitzar b'davar zeh. Therefore, there is the Yetzer Hara can find a place here. This is its breeding ground. The Kanisa Gadola. And Kanisa Gadola has a great. It's fertile ground for the Yetzer Hara. Therefore, we find that you're in great danger. There's a great danger here. For there are many good things that the Yetzer Hara can keep them away from you because they appear like they're bad. And there are many sins that the Yetzer Hara can bring close to you and make them appear as though they're great mitzvahs. The good things will appear like they're wrong or bad things, right? But the bad things as though they're great mitzvahs. He doesn't make the good things appear like they're great transgressions. If all.
It's only with the bad thing that he tries to make it appear like a great mitzvah.
Right. It makes the bad things appear like they're a great mitzvah. Right. In other words, the Yetzer Hara, right? The Yetzer Hara will rather it spends its time trying to make bad things look really, really good. As opposed to right? As opposed to making good things really, really bad.
Because it can do more damage by getting you to do bad things and avoid good things.
Seemingly that right, that would seem to be the once you get hooked into saving the planet as the most important, as Yehiel pointed out, that it has far greater interest in making terrible things like great mitzvahs. Right, great example of this is the spies. Right, they're ready to stone Yeshua and Caleb for standing up and to tell the spies that we could go in. Right, they took a bad thing and made it a great mitzvah. Right, it's a very devious thing. It's a terrible thing, but that's what we see. You take a bad thing and turn it into a big mitzvah. Right, but in our own personal lives, we have to be very careful. So I see this, unfortunately, a lot of places that people take, they make something that's not so great into a big mitzvah. It doesn't have to necessarily be so bad, but they overrides everything. Maybe it's their it's exercise, or they make it into like it's the be all and end all of everything, and it can override everything else that they want to be doing or should be doing. It takes over your whole psyche. So exercise obviously is very good, but it's not the biggest of all mitzvahs.
It's almost like the Yetzer Hara is taking something that you naturally have, which is a desire to connect to God, which is like a very powerful thing, and twists it and directs it elsewhere.
That's right. Right. That's what the snake did. The snake took the Avera. This is the classic paradigm of the snake. The snake took the Avera, the bad thing of eating from the fruit, and turned it into a gigantic mitzvah. You'll be like God. That's a biggie. And once Chava was convinced, and Adam was convinced that you'd be like God, that's it. Once you're convinced, this will say, is a very interesting thing. I heard this explanation of why, they say this thing that religion, you hear this all the time, religion has caused more suffering and war and death in the world than any other thing. And it's absolutely not true. People say, just don't read history. They don't listen to their own history. Right? The Second World, the 20th century alone saw more deaths in totality, let alone as a percentage of the world, from secular, non-religious movements than all the religions of history put together. It is crazy, right? Stalin, Mao, Hitler, Mussolini, right? The Japanese, right? All of them together, millions upon millions, probably close to 200 million people. We put those numbers together. They're mind-boggling, and this is not religion. So they say, why are secular religions so much more vicious and brutal? It's because when you have a religion, all the religions have mitigating concepts on anything you want. Wherever is the most important thing, nevertheless, they have mitigating concepts. So even like, the Crusades didn't appeal to everybody. There's mitigating, because there is within Christianity certain concepts that are redeeming, right? Islam too. All the religions have these kind of concepts, even though some of the things that we might find a little difficult. But nevertheless, you can't be 100%, right? The problem with fascism is that they make it's one idea will save the world. So all the religions, the non-Jewish religions, they had multiple ideas that would save the world. So they never quite, you could never get everybody to agree. Along come the fascists, say, no, we're going to make it very simple for you. It's just one idea, right? So the Hitler's like, just get rid of the Jews and we're all good, right? Stalin, just get rid of the money. That's what they believe, right? When the communists first got in, they banned money. It's mind-boggling, right? How can you do such a thing, right? The people were starving alive. America sent boatloads of humanitarian aid because people were literally starving alive, even though they were doing it to themselves, right? Stalin got in, and he had a better idea. He said, well, you're right, we're not going to pay the farmers, but if they don't produce enough crops, we'll shoot them. And that's what they did. They shot the farmers. You don't make enough food, right? We're going to shoot you.
Well, they're going to make so much more food when they're dead.
Yeah, exactly. Right. That's what they did. Obviously, it doesn't work. But the point is, like, when you've got this one idea will save the world, if you're not so discerning, and that's what he's going to say, you have to be discerning. Because we can all get caught up in it, and that's exactly what he's going to say. If you don't become discerning, and that's the whole idea. How do you've got to become incredibly discerning, because it's easy to look at the extremes and other people and history and see how bad these things are. But when you're in it, in other words, it's easy to look at communism and see how stupid it is, even though we've got some stupid people today who still think it's the way to go. But it's hard to convince humanity at this stage in existence how silly it is, how bad it is, because the evidence is so overwhelming. But at the time, people were really believing communism. Like, it was a real threat in America. People thought that we're going communist. It was really serious. People really believed that was the solution. Reporters would come back from Russia and say, I've seen the future, and it is now. This is the solution to everything we've been saying, all the problems of life. So, okay, so now let's go to the second paragraph. A person cannot possibly be successful, but Mishkan said, and weighing this up, unless he has three things. This is what is missing in the world today. It was they're never going to come up with the solutions. And then you see all the pundits, the movements going on. We'll go into them, but I'm sure you got your own ideas of what they are. They're going on in the world, whether it's in Israel or anything. Because if you're missing any of these three, you're never going to figure out what the right answer is. We are in a position in the world today where we're in the realm of Hasidus. We've conquered Siddhkus. We are in a state on in the planet where the needs, the basic needs and responsibilities of the non-Jewish world, in their minds at the very least, are being taken care of. Right? We have justice. We have varying degrees of equality. We have food. People are being fed. No one's starving. We have shelter. All the basic things that require the civilization needs to be a healthy, moral society are taken care of. But human beings want to grow. So now what's the next stage? And therefore they're filling this gap with the next stage of existence is driving everyone crazy. And because they're lacking these three things, they can't come up with what's a really appropriate way of, what's a really appropriate means of bettering the world. Is that making sense? I hope so. A person has to have a straight heart. It translates as truthful heart. You've got to be self-honest, and that is really missing in the modern political world. right? Nothing. The only reason he's doing anything is because he wants to do the right thing, to give nachas to the Almighty. There should be a perfect the world. That's his only concern. He's not political. It's not because this is his thing, right?
Not for honor.
Right, not for honor. Right, so do you see, like, it's a tragic thing, but even causes that we would agree on, even causes that we would find appropriate. Let's just do cancer research as a simple one, right? Or child abuse as a simple one. The people leading these movements are all victims of these movements or being affected by these disasters, right? I can only think of one movement off the top of my head. I only really thought about it just now, where that's not true, and that's the Israeli ambulance movement. What's it called?
Magen David Adom.
The other one, the competitor.
Hatzalah.
Thank you, Hatzalah. Right, Eli Beer. Right. He's not into it because he, nearly died and there wasn't an ambulance, right? He's the only one that I'm aware of. But nearly all of them are, their sibling died from cancer, their what was the other one I mentioned?
Child abuse.
What's that? Child abuse, right? They went through it themselves, right? And the problem with that, not that there's anything wrong with supporting, obviously, these causes because you went through it. The problem with that is, like, you weren't into this until you suffered from it. So how are you going to convince me to be into it when I didn't suffer from it? Now, you should be into it. These are good causes, and we should support these causes. But what was wrong with you that you didn't recognize this as an important cause before it hit you over the head? You've got to find the cause because it is the most important cause, not just because you just happen to walk onto you walked onto the ladder at the wrong time. We're going to now have safe ladders.
Oh, this is but what you meant before between the righteous man and the pious man, right? The tzaddik deals with the problem after it presents itself and they're affected by it. But the chassid thinks about it way in advance and wonders what's going to be, what issues are going to come up and then deals with it so that it's not a problem.
Right, that's exactly right. Right, a tzaddik builds a hospital. A chassid makes sure people don't get sick. Right? It's very, very hard raising money. I don't believe. I could be wrong here. There are many non-profits that are building labs, but there are lots that are building hospitals because it's very, it has tremendous appeal. We need a hospital. Now we do need a hospital, 100%. But I'd much rather see more money going into labs, right? But it's very hard to raise money. Most of the money in research is government money because, thank God, politicians understand you need to have labs, right? Prevention is better than the cure. But that's what a person should be asking themselves: what is the most important cause in the universe at the moment?
For God.
What's that? Right, but how do you do it? What's the specific of that? I'm not looking for an answer. Feel free to come up with something. Saying it, I don't mind. But I'm not putting you on the spot. But that's what you should be thinking. But what was really going on? See, Eli Beer did that. Eli Beer looked at the world and he said, this is what we're missing. Right? It's a phenomenal thing. But most people don't do that. They encounter the problem. They go, this is a terrible thing. And they're right. And it's good. I'm not saying, there's a lot of really good causes because, you found the problem in the world that was missing. Right? But it's very interesting. The president of Aish Torah, his name is Dick Horowitz, a phenomenal guy. He made our shidduch, Mark Ruth and I. So he how did he find Aish Torah? He was a secular guy, and he's looking in the world, and he sees the numbers. He's a numbers guy. He's in insurance, and he sees the numbers, and it doesn't look good. The Jewish people are assimilating, disappearing, and how are we going to solve this? So he made himself a plan. He's going to go to Israel and look up all the organizations that are dealing with this problem. And he started researching. This is before the internet, and he had a list. I forget the number, but let's say it was 100 organizations. When he's going, and Aish Torah was on the list, but it was far up the list. He went to the ones that were most obvious, and as he's going through the list, he realizes that every organization was either a waste of time, or they weren't focused on this issue, or they were started by Rav Noah. Right? He had a hand in them. So he after a little while, he bumped the Aish Torah up to the top of his next online, and he met with Rav Noah, and he was very impressed, and he made a donation. So he comes back to Los Angeles. He lives in Los Angeles, and he didn't get a thank you note. Not that he wanted a thank you note, but he realized this is an organization that really needs help. Right, and then they're doing the important work. Right, and that was that was a big deal. That's how you should be thinking. Right, that's how Rav Noach started Aish Torah. It's like it's a famous story. He saw what was going on, but he didn't know what to do. So he got on a boat. In those days, a boat. I think it was the 50s, late 50s, early 60s maybe. And he wanted to go speak to the Chazon Ish and ask him, what should we do? And on the boat, he heard the news that Chazon Ish had passed away. But he's like, what do we do? Right? The world is in crisis. We all understand that the state of affairs is absolutely nutty. So what do we do? So that's the first one. Nothing else around. Now, you've got your idea of what you're going to do. You have to be ma'ayin al ma'asav, Ian Godel. You have to have tremendous, going over, what are you doing? Is this the right way to do it? Because by 6 months after you make a plan, Winston Churchill said, plan, but execution, plans never work in execution. When you actually start the war, right? There's an old Chinese saying, right? Plans never survive the first bullet, right? The first arrow. Right? As soon as the conflict starts, whatever you plan to do never works out. That doesn't mean you don't plan. So the same thing, we're in a war, we're in a battle. We have to figure out how to solve it. But whatever it is you're planning to do, your first, whatever it is, never works. It always you've got to adapt. You see new opportunities, whatever it happens to be. So you have to, those people just stick to the same thing. They're not going to make it. You have to fix them as you're going along. Right? So the first thing is you've got to figure out what the right thing to do. What is the solution? Right? You've got to examine your technique, your strategy. And after all of this, you have to trust in God. Right? You have to trust in God. That's what it's all about. I used to call Rav Noach complaining, right? Because I used to be I'm still. There used to be so much debt. Oh, it would drive me batty, right? And he would say to me, "You're not going to like this at all." He would say to me, "Debt is an illusion." I never had the chutzpah to say to him, but I was thinking it. Well, I tried telling that to the bank manager.
No kidding.
Yes. But it's
What did
always-
he mean? What did he mean by that? Debt is an illusion.
So there's a great rabbi in London. Oh, I forget his name. He started a Jewish school. Begins with a P. I forget. I knew the secretary, so she told me the story. The school was growing and growing, and he bought another building. So the bank manager calls him up and screams on the phone, "How dare you write, bless you, how dare you write a check like that?" It's a big check. I don't remember what the number was. So after he calmed down, he turns to the bank manager and says, "What are you complaining for? I'm the one who's got to pay it." The Almighty is like, I give Chabad as an example, right? If you took all the Chabad's rabbis all over the world and you combined all their budgets, it's got to be $10 billion, at least, maybe more. It's not under $1 billion, right? It could be 100 billion. I have no idea. I can't even imagine it, right, Father? If any one person said 30 years ago, 40 years ago, right, when the Babaji went more than that, 50 years ago, right, would say, "How much do you need?" They said, "I need $10 billion. That's $10 billion a year. They're going nuts. There's no charity in the world that raises that kind of money. I'm sure that Chabad is the largest charity in the world. Just picture, who are they raising their money from? Not Chabadniks.
Right.
There are some to give, right? But if you're going to raise money, imagine for a minute. I said, I never call any anti-Semites to raise money. I just got on my, I did a video. Oh, it was from last week's class, and I love Jews, right? So it was on last week's class, right? So I posted it on Facebook and I posted all the social media sites. And one guy wrote, "I hate Jews." So I asked him, I said, "Why do you hate?" I think he's a one of these black Hebrew people. They're very anti-Semitic. I've heard they're very anti-Semitic. Right? So I said, "Why do you hate Jews?" But anyway,
What did he answer?
what? He hasn't answered yet. So, like, why? He said it doesn't make any sense. Right? It's an illusion. The mind's going to take care of you. Don't worry about it. I say I did a video on this. Go check out my YouTube channel. It's up there. It's called Worry. Right? We're all going to be sitting on our deathbed one day. Please God, 120 years. We're all going to look back, and we're going to realize, right? There wasn't a day that we didn't eat, unless it was Yom Kippur. Right? There wasn't a day that we weren't sleeping under in our beds, unless it was Sukkot. Right? Or we were camping out. Right? We're all going to look back, right? So would our lives be richer if we wouldn't worry? 100%. So what are you worrying for? A simple way to double your money. Don't worry. The same amount of money, right? And you won't worry, and you enjoy it more. Anyway, let's get moving.
Can you be concerned?
That's
That's just a euphemism for worry.
Well, no, but Dazita, you don't know how many people who know me as a worrier say, "Don't worry. You could be concerned, but don't worry."
No, it's a real thing, right? Because if you go meet people who worry more than you realize how disastrous it is. And as you get older, no one here is getting older, but some people do. As you get older, it gets harder to beat the worry. It's a thing you have to take in the present, because people think, "Oh, when I get there, then I won't worry." No, you will. It has not worry is doesn't worry is we worry. I'm saying in this video, worry that we're worry beings. We just need something to pin it on. It doesn't have go into a nursing home. They have nothing to worry about. They can't kick them out. 3 meals a day. They're good for the rest of their lives, and yet they worry. They're not walking around carefree, enjoying life. Some of them have got it, but a lot of them still worry because we're worry beings. We just need something to put it on.
You mean that's our natural state? Is that what you're saying?
It's not our natural state. It's the curse that the punishment from the Adam, right? The zer sepecha, by the sweat of your brow you'll eat bread. Right. So Hirsch points out zer sepecha, the sweat of your brow doesn't mean hard work. That's how the Christians think it means. It means worry. The brow is your worry, right? And it's a killer. Why is it a killer? Because the human condition was not designed to worry. It was placed on Adam. It's not part of the original specifications. So he was placed on him after he ate from the fruit. So we're not built to worry. It's a famous Orcha Sadiq in The Way of the Righteous, the book of the Way of the Righteous. Phenomenal book. Over the top, phenomenal. I mean, it doesn't do it justice for me to tell you that. So he said, what's worry? He says, who is the one who's never free from worry? The person who picks a goal that's too high for themselves. Right? In other words, you want to achieve something that's too much for you. So you're constantly stressing, and therefore you never get to a reprieve. Right? So I read this. So I went to Rav Nar. He said, I don't understand this. Right? He was always into great goals, lofty goals, giant goals, save the world goals, bring the Mashiach goal. That's he always told. How do you know if a goal's too high for yourself? You won't know until you get there. But you either make it or you don't make it. You can't. Right? Imagine, for instance, Edison's mother said, "Forget the light bulb, for crying out loud. Just make a longer candle." Right? You know, give me a washing machine. I don't need an electric. You know, so where would we be? Right. So he said to me, "What goal is too high for a human being? To be God. To be God. That's what the snake said to Hava. You'll be God. You'll be like God. To be God." So I said to him, "No." So I don't understand. Who wants to be God?
Everybody.
I don't. I don't.
Everybody. So I said to him, right? What do you mean, everybody? Who wants to be God? So he said, give me an example. He says, God forbid, you take your kid to the hospital, right? And the doctors say, it's very serious. We don't know if you're going to make it to the night. Come back tomorrow morning, and if it's all successful, he'll live. And if not, he won't. Right? So what do? Right? Well, you're downtown, go, oh, there's a new Steven Spielberg movie out. Let's catch it. Well, let's be quick. Right? My favorite restaurant is on the corner. We'll invite a few friends. We'll have a good time. Now, what do? You get in the
Stay up
lobby.
all night.
You stay up all night, pacing the halls, saying Tehillim, calling her over, blah, blah, blah. Right, you follow? You understand? What difference is it going to make? Nothing at all. You want to be God. You know, there's nothing more you can do. They say, we understand that one. Because we've all met the guy who's like white knuckling it on the plane, right? And you say to him, you can relax now, we're in the air. And he says, no, you don't understand. I'm keeping the plane up. Now, he may not say that, but he thinks that. Hey, what are you worried about on the plane? If you're dead, you're dead. There's nothing you can do. So in everything in life, there's a point where there's nothing more you can do.
Accept it.
Accept it, right? That's when God takes over. And everything in life, and you have to respect that line. Crossing that line is entering God's territory. That's God. That's up to him. But there's so much you can do. You ask for a raise, you put in the work, you buy the lottery ticket, you're on the plane, you take the kid to the hospital, wherever it is. Every single thing in life Right? Every single thing in life has a line, and you cross that line, you enter God's territory, and that's what worry is. You want to be God. So God says, you want to be God? Go see what it's like. You won't like it very much. That was the curse of Adam. Adam wanted to be like God. So God says, okay, go see what it's like. You won't like it. And the tikkun is to realize I can't be God. Who perfected this? Yaakov. Yaakov is meeting his brother. His brother was coming to kill him. And it says he was very worried and afraid. He was exceedingly anguished. And what did he do? Mind-boggling. He went to sleep. He prepared as much as he could, and then he went to sleep. Right? And the Talmud points out that Yaakov is one of the very few characters in the Bible that he tells us that he went to sleep the most. Right? He's always sleeping.
He needs to catch up for all those 14 years that he didn't sleep when he was in Shem and Eber.
That's exactly the answer. The Talmud points out, right? The Torah tells us that he went to sleep, meaning these are one of the few times he went to sleep. He didn't need to sleep that much, right? He was amazingly strong. So tonight, the night you're going to go to sleep? Exactly. Right? Exactly. That's the night, right? Now it's up to God. You follow?
I've done everything I can. I've done my hishtadlut. God, you're in charge. You're in charge of the results.
Now,
I accept whatever you're going to give me.
Exactly. Now, where did he learn it from?
Where did he learn it from? Didn't he learn it from his...
What's that?
Who? Where did Hashem learn it from?
Where did Yaakov learn it from?
Oh.
He didn't learn it from his father?
No.
From Abraham?
No. Where's a good feminist when I need one?
He learned it from his mother?
He learned it from his mother.
How?
Because when his mother tells him to go into his father to pretend to be Esau, she says to him, she takes him to the door, and she says to him, this is as far as I can take you. From now going forward, God will help you.
Really? I must look at the verses. I never noticed that.
It's a midrash. You look it up, you'll see it. If you can't find it, let me know. I'll send it to you.
Wow.
How did she know God would take? Because you go to the line. That's it. There's nothing more I can do. Now you're in God's hands. He will take care of you. If you live like that, he understood from what she said. He felt it from her. There's nothing to worry about anymore. You'll be fine.
I don't understand. Where did she get it from?
Oh, now you're asking her. It's beyond my pay grade. I don't know.
Because you would have thought it would have come from the greats, Abraham, Yitzchak.
Yes, exactly. I would have thought that, but it doesn't. It isn't from her.
Well, couldn't it have come from Sarah too? Like, wasn't she the one that said, "Look, I don't appreciate this, and let God judge between us. I'm letting go."
Right, but we have I don't know if it's a tradition or a principle, but when we learn of a person doing something in the Torah, they're the initiator of this concept.
Ah, okay, because it's mentioning it in relation to them. Got it.
Exactly.
Wow.
Okay, looking forward.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
All the best.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.